Kunal, great talking to you. You know, one of the things I was just thinking about and speaking to some of the investors is, and this is the grapevine, right? Like you had an offer of being a partner in Sequoia, you spent time in YC, and you were traveling all over the world and a lot in China. How come you didn't pursue being a partner and started Cred?
I was exploring multiple things at that point of time, and both YC and Sequoia were kind enough to just have me around. I don't think we had anything concrete kind of form, but could have gone in that direction. The point was for me, we wanted to make sure that I enjoy it and they see me kind of adding value. I enjoyed my stint. I learned a lot. I had so many companies. I so many founders. You could be in board meetings and look at so many interesting things. For me, the shocking thing about was that a lot of time we just consider VCs to be some non-smart people trying to make things happen. When you go on that side, you realize how difficult that job is. So I think I could empathize with that role. I don't think I realized that it was going to be something that I want to enjoy right now, because I realized that when the world has unlimited amount of money coming to the country, you should be rather building and not be investing, because you're less likely to make good investment when there is just too much capital coming, right? So for me, the timing of the market was not for being an investor, but being a founder. So became a founder again.
That brings me to the question that, you know, with Cred, you're addressing the 30-40 million population. But today, if you look at the investment, and today, if you look at the venture investment and everything, the whole talk is about the next 500 million. And so how come you chose a different direction?
I think, Shradha, there's a big confusion about this market, and I have built a company for the masses before, and I can tell you one thing, that we tend to confuse a lot of data about India. First of all, India's per capita income is confusing, right? We say it's average 2,000, but we have to forget that, we often forget that only 9% of urban Indian women work. We are the lowest in the world. Probably from the bottom, we are rank 8 right now. In fact, Pakistan and Bangladesh are much ahead of us. Now, if that is the situation, the per capita income to support any kind of internet business model which offer convenience to you is just hard to do. But global companies love to come to India because they can build MAU farms of this country, right? MAU farm khol do, DAU farm khol do, and these companies are not interested in ARPUs, right? They are very happy with the MAUs because they can add that to the global numbers, and in the public market look really, really good. But for me, to make a business, you look at difference between HDFC and SBI. One company has maybe 10 times more retail customers, but other company has 3x more market cap.
Yeah.
So the point is that this data is all around us. I'll give you a simplest example. If you look at Bollywood, right? You look at the top 3 actors, let's say, all the Khans, let's say, put it that way. If you look at their 80% of their box office revenue comes from only 2,000 or 3,000 screens that are multiplexes.
Yeah.
So this whole data about what market is ready for internet business models is definitely skewed towards the top 20-30 million. Even today, if you look at Flipkart, Amazon, the people who buying are still in the same 20-30 million. So the market future and the market readiness today is very, very different. Today, a lot of times we confuse these data points. Now, obviously, we all believe that the 100 million, 200 million will happen, but today if you look at the income tax data, if you look at the income data, if you look at the female participation of labor, if you look at jobs situation, we are not there yet. So why create business models that are just likely to just create these large DAU numbers and no revenue or business model?
So tell us about Cred. What are you addressing with this, and how come this idea came to you? You are the idea man. So if you chose this idea, there has to be so many things to it. So tell us.
It was actually a very simple idea. We realized that if we could just aggregate people who can be of high trust, right? We can create interesting business models on top of that. For example, in India, classifieds as a platform have not worked so far because we have systematically suffered trust problems, right? Like if you see any nation that has low trust, classifieds platforms don't work. Like you must have tried OLX Quicker and other things that the experience is not that great because there are lots of random things that happen because of that. So our goal is that if you can systematically create a huge amount of trust in the system by building a parallel kind of an app which has all this ecosystem, and then over on top of that create a huge amount of interest for these people to kind of interlink with each other. Now we've taken the first approach of connecting credit card bills and giving rewards against that, but it brings a high trust people, and eventually we want these guys to be able to connect. So we are creating a large gated community of high trust individuals, and then eventually figure out a way for them to work with each other and create interesting business model on top of that. Simple example is that when you have affluent high trust individuals like merchants willing to pay you money for giving their rewards and getting them introduced to these brands. So we work with so many brands who are launching with us, right? Then we are talking to interesting players who are launching events with us, right? So the idea is that once you aggregate a certain amount of people and you can qualify them, it becomes a better business model. Now, in the future, a lot of people assume that, okay, we are a fintech company. We are not a fintech company. We are a lifestyle company. We are creating a high trust network of people, and eventually we want the members to be able to help each other to doing interesting things. So tomorrow, classifieds could be a potential. Tomorrow, why can't we do apartment listing amongst the members? And you would want to, let's say if you had an apartment, you would want to give it to another person who has high credit score, so that you have to worry less about collecting rent, deposits, and so on and so forth. You know, amount of money stuck in deposits in this country because of low trust is huge, right? Imagine you can create a platform where people don't need to take deposits from each other, right? And suddenly you have a much better ecosystem being built. So it's a little bit of a wild thing, but at least so far the response has been very, very good. Now we are scaling well, and I think people are liking the idea of being rewarded for being a good actor.
It's extremely relevant in India, where trust, as you said, is a big issue, and we're all looking for a trusted platform. And I think Flipkart also worked initially because they delivered on time. But I have one question. You know, with this trust and being a good actor, don't you think that in some way it creates an exclusive club where if I default once, my score might go down, and then I am not part of this circle?
You'll be surprised that it is not about this one action that kind of gets you down over there, right? A lot of times it's a conscious, willful action of doing defaults that makes you go down. For example, if you make a small partial payment, you show the intent, the score never goes down, right? But a lot of times if you just decide to not pay the bill and disappear, which is a common behavior in India, right? Like you've seen a lot of times, means you've been in business and so many clients will promise money and not deliver it, and there is no penalty for them, right? So I think if you see any country has only become prosperous when they reward the good actors and punish the bad actors. We are not a government, we are not here to punish bad actors, but we can reward the good actors, right? So the point is that a lot of times we forget that it is important. Like in the US, you know, if you have an insurance, the price is dependent on how you drive, right? If you do any bad driving, the insurance cost doubles or triples. But we are not there yet to be able to implement that level of sophisticated systems. So at least what we can do, we can start rewarding good actors. And I don't know if you noticed, but income tax recently announced that they're going to create special privileges for people who are good taxpayers and reward them, because it's impossible. How many people will we need to jail for doing tax violation? We don't have enough jails for that. So best is to kind of reward the good actors. So we are just taking that narrative forward.
So if you can tell us, how are you envisioning it? You said that, you know, you'll create a platform tomorrow of this community. But in terms of, and sorry, but I'm just asking for all the entrepreneurs and everyone watching is, I read that you said that, you know, for the next 1 year, we're not looking at revenue models and all that. How are you thinking through this in the 12, 18 month scenario?
I don't think we will be not thinking for revenue for a year. We will probably do some revenue. We already do some revenue from merchants already, right? So it's not that we are not thinking about revenues right now. Is it in the focus? No, the focus is to be first be able to get these members in first, because the network effects kick in only when we have enough number of members, right? So what we are doing is that thinking about creating platform where we have enough critical mass for being able to make a credible business model out of it and go to any merchant, any bank. For example, a lot of banks have reached out to us to offer personal loans on our platform, right? Now, it's a great business model, because a lot of times the front end for a lot of the financial apps or banks may not be as smooth or seamless as what we could potentially build. But a lot of people think that, oh, fintechs will come and disrupt banks. Nobody is disrupting banks. Shraddha, let's understand one thing. In India, when it comes to taking money, we don't mind which brand it comes from.
Yeah.
When it comes to depositing money, we care about it,
Yes.
right? And therefore, brands that have been there for years are actually valued more because
Yes.
we have to deposit money in them. And therefore, we have to remember that their importance in the system will remain in a mistrust nation even forever,
Yeah.
right? There's an interesting thing, like जो भी country mistrust होता है, like you will notice that there is also concentration of trust. For example, you will see like 80% or 90% of all Bollywood revenue comes from 20 people or 30 people, right? You will notice that same for market cap, right? A Tata can do a salt to car
Yeah.
to furniture and you will trust them, right? And a lot of people say, oh, like nepotism exists in this country. No, we are likely to watch movie of a celebrity's son versus a new person. We are by design likely to have trust problems, right?
Yeah.
So we forget these factors and therefore banks are going to be there forever. But banks need a good front end partner.
Yeah.
A lot of times we could really help them do that, right? So our goal is that eventually allow these members to get benefits from different parties, merchants, banks. We are trying to even say that can we make getting visas easier for our members, because let's take an example, like no matter who we are, our passport is not the best passport in the world to get visas and we get so much struggle, but can we make at least these members who are likely to be more trustworthy to get visas faster
Yeah.
to go to some countries. So we are thinking of life slightly differently, and if we can do this well, we can keep expanding the market base.
From what I hear, and please correct me, is that what you're concentrating right now is not on the transaction per se, but building a community, right? Like building a community of good actors.
I think it looks like a transaction platform.
Yeah.
We want to be a community, and eventually what you will see that this will become more like a community more than a transaction platform. Transaction platform was probably a way to filter. So let's take an example of any gated community. Let's take a IIT as a gated community or Harvard as a gated community. The value is once you get people inside the gate,
Yeah.
the value they extract from each other, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times the gate is just the filtering mechanism
Yeah.
to do that, right? We are intending to do that, that if you have got high trust individuals in one place, imagine what they can do with each other.
Yeah.
And I think those are very interesting possibilities in front of us.
Kunal, before coming up with this idea, how much time did you take and think about it?
My standard method is to not kind of pull the trigger quickly in life. It takes a year and a half before I do my full research. I don't believe in this fail fast pivot concept, right? I believe do homework, spend a lot of time. I never did any homework in my school and college. Abhi main homework karta hu. The thing is that as entrepreneurs, the only currency we have less of is time.
Yeah.
Right? We are not getting younger.
Yeah.
And because you have less time in front of you, it's best that you go prepared versus trying to say, chalo kuch karke dekhte hain and fir kuch left marenge, right marenge. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
You cannot expect to be successful in a country like India by pivoting, because see, the joke I make often about this country, this country is not a very fertile country because of per capita income, right? This is like a sort of a banjar zameen, right? यहाँ पे फसल नहीं उगती, मसल बन जाता है. So you
Yeah.
want to be in a situation where you are better prepared, and research is so easy to do. Like even today, we have a team of interns who call every time we want to launch something, we'll do thousands of calls, thousands of interviews, and then we say, okay, we are getting conviction कि ये चलेगा, and then launch it. But why do we? Because a lot of times, see, the thing is, because I am not an engineer, I first don't code. Coding is the last thing that happens on the idea over here, right? So we do a lot of preparation.
You know,
we
you're a
mock
big
screen.
champion for all the non-coding entrepreneurs.
But
You're
but there are very few of them who,
Yeah.
which is not good. But it's not that even engineers understand this point. The
Yeah.
thing is that a lot of time they just are averse to talking to other people,
Yeah.
right? Because it's not a culture. At least in engineering schools, you are not going and doing projects and interviewing 100 people or whatever, right? You are mostly focusing on your computer, right?
Yeah.
So, but unless you speak to 200, 300 customers, like for example, one of the things that we are trying to do, we are launching one reward where the Cred team will be able to meet Cred customers in an event, right? Now to interact, and because you cannot know everything. You
Yeah.
cannot, like yesterday, 2 days ago, I posted on LinkedIn, what would you like to see Cred do? And we got like 1,200 comments or 1,100 comments on that right now. And it's funny, one of the journalists called and said that we have never seen somebody just like So one person made an interesting comment saying that no wonder there are no product manager roles over here. Like internet se nikal ke you're making features, which is good because you have an engaged community that is wanting to make you better, which is what you really want.
You know, that brings me to two things which are very obvious about you. One is that the credibility that you hold, right, as an entrepreneur, and the second thing is that you've created a media sort of for your own son. So how have you done that, and how important, how do you think, how relevant do you think it is as an entrepreneur for you?
Few things to think about. I think credibility is a very sensitive word. I think it's a big honor when somebody gives it to you. I personally don't think I deserve that kind of thing that you are saying it is to be. I'm just more real. I like to be more real. You are like that. You are a very real person, and you don't like to kind of play games. You say what you have in your mind. I think a lot of times that works because you are what you are, right? And I think that allows you to hire great teams around you. That allows you to have great investors behind you because you are not playing games. If you are not doing well, you will say, "Nahi, I don't know what's going on," right? But the thing is, what I have done at least is that I have not, you have the curse of doing advertising, I don't. So what happens is that I have rarely, probably never tweeted about my angel investments, right? I never promote anything that I'm doing. I don't even talk about cred a lot. I talk about general observations. I do polls. I provoke. I sometimes make people think and all of that. I think that allows somebody to kind of relate to you and see the character behind the person. And I think that is very, very important. A lot of times we underestimate the power of having your own social media cloud because people are not inherently bad, right? A lot of times people want to help you, but if they don't know who you are, they can't understand. And it's so easy to say, oh, this guy is the hotshot entrepreneur and oh, he sold this company for so. You're all the same people. But I think a lot of time this perception gets created because you become less available, right? And I think you may be less available because you're just not having enough time to do things. But a lot of times people just perceive, and I think social media allows people to feel that you are approachable, you make sense, you speak like them, you think like them. And I think that allows you to have some clout, and I think it definitely helps in launching a new startup because for me, without my social media, Cred would have not launched, right? Like we had so many people who were supporters, friends, people who were following me were the first early customers, and I mean, that is magical.
But what was very interesting is that you went and responded or liked or to all the tweets. So you consciously do that? Have you worked on this, or this is just organically come? Because many people are slightly more introvert.
See, social media, you have to be authentic. I don't think you can appoint a manager and say, "वो आपका response कर रहा है," right? Because people can see through it, right? And I think social media is a double-edged sword. You must have seen in recent times it can go either ways, right? So the thing is that you have to play it carefully, right? And I think therefore it's best to be authentic, right? And if you have made a mistake, accept it right there, saying that you are right, we screwed up, we could do better. And people are willing to give constructive feedback if you appear to be vulnerable and accepting of not being perfect, right? I think a lot of times people just create this magnanimous impression, probably out of their own insecurity, which does not help.
Kunal, just bringing on this authenticity, you have been very distinct and you stand out because you're like you. As an entrepreneur, coming from the background that you come, be it your first startup and now doing this, just tell us that what do you think right now has worked for you and what you had to learn?
I think what has worked for me is just having enough paranoia and curiosity ka combination, right? I think when you have both of these things together, you will go to the depth of things versus trying to be superficial about things. That's the first point. The second thing I would say is that because you don't know certain things on how product works or how tech works, all of that, you actually take more effort to know exactly how this works, and you are trying to overcompensate in a very, very big way. I think these two things have really, really worked for me. In terms of the method that I learn and I constantly strive for is that I reach out to, I recently reached out to somebody who was heading Tinder product to understand that how could they make things more and more simple, right? You can make the product very complex, but when you make products even more simple, like you go and speak to these guys and people are more than willing to tell you everything about it, right? I recently connected with somebody who launched Uber in many countries, saying that how did you go about launching it over there, right? And it's important that people are willing to give knowledge, but you have to be sincere in your approach and ask them questions. So for me, my simple method is, on an average, I'm reaching out to at least 4 or 5 people a day to ask dumb questions, and people are more than happy to answer. I think the ability to ask dumb questions, I think, is a superpower.
About the team in Cred, so how did you go about building the team? And in fact, you raised money before you launched Cred, right? So just tell us how.
Well, we had a bunch of folks who worked with us before in the previous startup. Some of the guys I had invested in startups and their startup did not work. Bunch of young folks. So it was a lot of a mixed match thing. But we did an interesting thing this time. I had a belief that people who tend to understand product also understand how audience works, right? So I have a thesis that the best product managers are a combination of high IQ and understanding of crowd empathy, or know how to get applause. So what we have done is, a lot of our leadership is actually people who are good engineers slash consultants slash smart people, but also have another part of their life which they are artists. So a lot of our guys are either band members, musicians, poets, painters, performance artists, stand-up comedians, because we realize that they have an extra edge to understand the consumer. That's my wild experiment this time, that we've added one more extra layer, saying that not only they should be competent to do the job, they should also have an extra edge. Like, we are recently hiring somebody who has a huge YouTube channel of their own. So the thing is that you bring these, so we like the people with dual personalities, where they also have a strong internal character and a strong high IQ capability of building something on the top.
I have to ask you this, that we are in 2019, we are entering August. How have you seen, you've been such an intrinsic core part of the narrative of the Indian startup tech ecosystem. How have you seen the changes? What is your, like here, what do you think? Where are we right now?
I think we are much better than what we were 7, 8 years ago, right? People are more real, people are more forthcoming, people are, there was a time where entrepreneurship felt like IIT ki exam, right? Where people would hide their notes and write quietly so that the other guy would not copy. But I've learned one thing from China: they all have their notes open and they constantly help each other, and they win and hunt in packs as entrepreneurs. Over here, we have a zero-sum mindset. Ki hum chupa ke we learn. Like, but if I share 2 insights from my business and 2 insights from your business, and we are smarter, and imagine we do this all day long, we'll have much better way of running our own business. But a lot of times we are thinking of this as some fixed wealth and fixed curriculum, ke we have to score the highest rank, but wealth is not zero sum. Wealth is expanding, and therefore we can do a lot more. And this concept is not understood because nobody was taught capitalism in the country, right? I have asked most entrepreneurs that how many hours of research they have done in what is capitalism, and it's less than 1 hour for most people. They don't even know what is capitalism. So how are you playing the game of capitalism without even knowing what is capitalism? Right? Because we have this false notion of socialism in this country. For example, I tell people that, is MRP good for the country or bad for the country? They're like, of course it's good. I'm like, then you don't understand capitalism. Because MRP is not a great thing, because if you are, let's say, getting a Diet Coke for 35 rupees, the rich is getting the biggest benefit, because he would be paying probably 400 rupees in an affluent neighborhood to acquire that product, and it should be much cheaper in a thing. But if you have made an MRP, you've basically made the rich win, because now the average price is to address all of them. So a lot of times people forget these things, and often forget that unless you understand these concepts, you cannot win this game. It's a game of capitalism. So other thing I would say is changing in the ecosystem is that the second time, third time founders are at least making new mistakes, right? I think we have a wave of second time founders or third time founders. I think that is going to be really, really powerful. In China, most of the unicorns were second time founders, right? I think that is happening now in India, and I think that is going to create a game in a very, very interesting way. Their ability to raise capital, their ability to build better products, their ability to move the ecosystem, their ability to get merchant tie-ups or banking tie-ups or anything is just superior. And I think this will make the game even more harder because the quality of people you need to play this game is going to only improve now.
I'll tell you a word and you have to tell me in a sentence, max two, what does it mean to you? So, you told capitalism, but I'll ask money.
Money is a method to unlock choices in life,
Ambition.
to find a purpose to live,
Cred.
an experiment that if it works will change the country,
Kunal Shah.
a learner,
Hope.
a drug. Most people are addicted to it.
Happiness.
A flawed concept.
Flawed concept. Okay, I have to pause and ask why.
Only humans are the ones who are chasing happiness.
Yeah.
Every other species is just being what they are saying. I think the concept of chasing happiness is a flawed one because there is no way you can be happy. You'll say, once I have this, I'll be happy. You remember when you wanted your first car and you said you'll be happy if you have the car?
Yeah.
The moment you sat in the car, you saw a better car and you're not happy.
Yeah.
So according to me, happiness is a flawed concept. That should not be the purpose. I think creation is a much better direction to have. That happiness is a thing that you can never achieve and you always feel unhappy about it.
2 traits in you that you are proud of.
0. No traits that I'm proud of.
2 things that you would like to change.
I have a lot of long list. I have to pick the 2. I would love to be able to learn more. I would love the ability to move faster.
India.
I mean, I can keep going on. Perfect place to be.
Entrepreneurship.
Probably the only way we'll make this country win if everybody is a job seeker who's creating them.
Social media.
A sharp knife which you can either use to kill or kill yourself.
Before we conclude, Kunal, all the best with Cred. And if you have to say that in 1 year, if we are meeting again for Cred interview, 1 year down the line, what should we expect?
What you should expect is that we have a lot of members enjoying being part of this community and actually progressing in life through Cred.
Thank you so much. All the best. Always an inspiration talking to you.
Thank you.